Good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream. I greet you this morning. Today is June the 6th. I'm brought to you by Hope Through Navigation, and this is our Hood Recovery Services. I'm looking forward to doing the Just for Today in a meditation with you. And let's go ahead and get into the reading. Let me pull it up. In the meantime, you can reach me. At Recovery of Hope 21 at gmail.com. Recovery of Hope 21 at gmail.com. Okay, today's title, Recovery Doesn't Happen Overnight. The 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous are a progressive recovery process established in our daily living. Basic text, page 99. After some time in recovery, we may find we are faced with what seem like overwhelming personal problems, angry feelings, and despair. When we realize what's going on, we may, but I've been working so hard. I thought I was recovered, maybe? Not hardly. Over and over, we hear that recovery is an ongoing process and that we are never cured. Yet we sometimes believe that if we just work our steps enough, pray enough, or go to enough meetings, we'll eventually, maybe not be cured, but be something. And we are something. We're recovering from active addiction. No matter what we've dealt with through the process of the steps, there will always be more. What we didn't remember or didn't think was important in our first inventory will surely present itself later on. Again and again, we'll turn to the process of the steps to deal with what's bothering us. The more we use this process, the more we'll trust it, for we can see the results. We go from anger and resentment to forgiveness, from denial to honesty and acceptance, and from pain to serenity. Recovery doesn't happen overnight, and ours will never be complete. But each day brings new healing and the hope for more tomorrow. Just for today, I will do what I can for my recovery today and maintain hope in the ongoing process of recovery. Let's take a moment of silence followed by the reversion of Serenity Prayer. A moment of silence now. Prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Recovery doesn't happen overnight. That's the topic here for the Just for Today NA meditation for June 6th. And it's very interesting because there's two schools of thoughts in recovery. There's the school of thought that we do recover. And the question becomes, if we do recover, are we ever recovered? And then there's the school of thought that we are always going to be in a state of recovering from the disease of addiction. And I personally believe that this topic causes confusion in the fellowship. I believe that some people don't forever want to attach themselves to the word addict. And so they use the term recovering addict. And there are some that prefer to see themselves as being recovered, especially some individuals that are have a faith system, religious in nature. There's various faiths that promote the thought that God can heal a person from disease. right, can heal their body. And because of that, a lot of these individuals that have been around a while, they no longer identify themselves as recovering addicts, but as recovered. And I think that it's very important for the newcomer to not get caught up on wordplay or terminology, um, because at the end of the day, if you do this just one day at a time, at the end of the day, we have the disease of addiction that manifests itself in all areas. And we must be vigilant about working the program of Narcotics Anonymous, the spiritual principles of Narcotics Anonymous, which are just generally universal principles of virtue, such as kindness, surrender, joy, honesty, love, patience, endurance. These are all spiritual virtues or principles that are pretty universal. They're not unique to NA. They're not unique to AA. They're not unique to any organization, any religion. They are unique to being a human and having care for ourselves and the next person. And the newcomer needs to realize that if they come in to the program and they begin to play with the terms that are used, right, to make them more suitable for themselves, then what happens when you've stopped using drugs, but you're using people still? Are you still suffering from the disease of addiction? Just because you stop using drugs, do you cease to suffer from the disease of addiction, which is spiritual in nature? See, I think not. So it's very important for a person to keep it 100 with themselves and realize that all of these things that we struggle with mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, they have a spiritual origin, right? And the suffering comes from, a lot of times, self-inflicted, a lot of times, not always, but from the manifestation of the disease of addiction, wanting one more to make ourselves feel better. Self-gratification, self-centeredness is at the core of our disease. So if it's at the core of our disease, whether we want it to be one of our core values or not, it's there. It's pretty primate. It's pretty natural to want to take care of oneself. In fact, when people don't take care of themselves, we think naturally there's something wrong with them, right? So it's pretty natural to want to take care of oneself. However, it becomes a problem when the taking of care of oneself, that self-centeredness, right, it imposes issues or problems or itself upon other people. And a lot of times with the disease of addiction, especially when we're talking about the manifestation or the symptom of using drugs, it causes us to do and say things and behave in manners that are not conducive towards community. They're not conducive towards family. They're not conducive towards friendship. It causes us to do and say things that set us further apart from the nucleus, from the center of the group. It sets us apart from that. And then we begin to see that we're not welcomed in certain circles because of our behavior, which is really rooted in our disease of addiction, are using drugs in this case. And so people don't want to be bothered with you. And so now you have to learn how to live in a sub setting, And generally speaking, that subsetting is going to include other people that are doing the same thing that you're doing. Okay. So I just want to make sure that when we read this, the newcomer understands we don't recover overnight. And just because the drug is put down doesn't mean that we're recovered. We need to stay humble, and we need to keep the presence of mind that we are in a state of recovery always. And I would venture to say, as long as you have breath in your body, as long as you are living and vital, right? Can think, and that's really the ticket. As long as you can think, you are always going to have some manifestation of the disease of addiction in your life. And you will need to know how to use these same spiritual principles that are taught through the working of the steps, the 12 steps. You're going to need to know how to apply them in all of your affairs. Step 12 clearly tells us that. So if you're not able to do that, you're going to be running the risk. If you're not able to look at it for what it's worth, you're going to run the risk of thinking that you've arrived and then finding yourself fall, a lot of times in front of others, right? And how we say in the program, everybody gets 15 minutes of fame. Yeah. So that's just to say that a lot of times we think we have this thing of recovery, and then life happens and we find out that we don't, right? And so for the newcomer, it's very important, for anyone, the old timer as well, it's very important that we keep this very close to our hearts. Recovery doesn't happen overnight. Can you work a program that is free from a lot of error and strife and bitterness and confusion and failures? Absolutely. But a stretch a period of time of doing that does not mean that you are exempt, right? And so I just want to say, yes, we do recover. And in regards to using drugs, we cease to do that. But the dilemma, the spiritual dilemma that has been created within us is an ongoing process. I like to compare it to, I like to compare it to, I think I want to stay right here for a second. I was going to go back to the other screen, but I want to stay here for a second. I like to compare it to an individual that has been diagnosed with cancer. And it's pretty aggressive, and they're going to need to take chemo treatments and radiation. Okay. So they go through all of that. And then the follow-up test comes, and their body is free of cancer. Have they recovered from cancer? Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Will they be able to go on through life as though they've never had cancer? Absolutely not. They will always have to be mindful of their behaviors that they can change. Let's say if it was lung cancer, all right? So how foolish would it be for that person once they are recovered from lung cancer, after all the chemotherapy, radiation, possibly even surgery, cutting something out, right? How foolish would it be for them to go back to smoking cigarettes, right? So they have to remember, you passed through this and you came through it quite well, but your body is already prone to develop cancer. Clearly, it's prone to develop cancer, and you need to live your life like that matters, right? And so that's the same thing with the disease of addiction, right? We put the drug down and we get in a state of healthy living, of wellness. but how foolish it would be if I decided to start picking up behaviors that lead me to a place where I become ashamed, embarrassed, guilty, feeling guilt and shame, and can't face people, can't talk to people, don't want to let people know I'm suffering. Then I've backed myself up into a corner that I may not be able to get out of clean or alive, or both. So I just want you to consider that today. I wanted to reread this last sentence. We go from anger and resentment to forgiveness, from denial to honesty and acceptance, and from pain to serenity. This is our goal. We want this in our lives, and we can have it one day at a time. I hope that you've enjoyed the NA meditation, and I look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Have a beautiful day.